I'd like to welcome everybody to another meditation mat talk about some of the things that we run into when we are meditating and when we are in the midst of untying those little emotional knots that we talk about through meditation. As a little reminder, of course, meditation is simply the ability to sit quietly in the present day. But on the road to sitting quietly, we see that we have many things in the background that aren't that quiet, and they come up during meditation. They float into the mind, and I like to think of these things as unresolved energy. There's energy that's still in motion because we put it in motion in the past, and it's still working its way to a solution in a sense. You want to say hello, Sprite? She's meditating, of course. So when we encounter these bits of consciousness that are undone, in a sense, they're still on a mission that we put together years ago, and they still haven't found a solution. Sometimes we can go back and visit this energy and begin to work with it to bring its mission to an end, or to look at that mission and see whether it still has some validity in our life, if that makes any sense. Sometimes these parts of our consciousness demand freedom, though, and they don't want to be touched, they don't want to be interfered with, and they use freedom as a way of defending their actions. So I want to talk a little bit about freedom today, because freedom is a word that has been stretched out of shape by the way that our mind works in the modern day, in a sense. I guess the way we learn freedom is freedom is the ability to move in any direction, basically, right? And I think the concept of freedom in this way really came from an opposite, in a sense, right? It came from not wanting to be controlled, right? We don't want to be controlled. And the opposite of that is freedom, right? So freedom is the ability, so if you're not controlled by anything, then you have the ability to go in any direction, right? So it's such an expansive definition, this freedom, but it's really the opposite of being controlled. So it really comes from not wanting to be controlled, right? But freedom is not as expansive as what this opposite is, right? I mean, freedom, this kind of freedom would mean that we would have freedom from circumstance, in a sense. We would have freedom from cost. And the only reason we would want freedom from cost is if what we were doing had a negative impact on ourselves or on others, right? Because if it had a positive impact, we wouldn't want freedom from that cost, right? We would want to be paid, right? It's a sense we'd want to be paid. So obviously these decisions that we're making are not healthy, right? So this way of thinking, this way of understanding freedom, the freedom to do something without cost, comes from what I call the addicted mind, right? The mind that thinks like an addict, right? The part of the mind that thinks that it wishes that it could act in a way that it wishes to act and not have to pay the cost, right? So these have to be negative traits because there's a cost to them, right? Positive traits pay us in a way. So the Buddha taught a different type of freedom. He taught freedom in a world where we did have to pay for our decisions, right? So he realized that the true universe, or the reality, settle down, little girl, the reality was not a universe where we could get away with not paying. We had to pay, in a sense, right? So we have to pay for our actions, or we can be paid for our actions, right? And so what he decided in this universe of circumstance is that he decided to take from it very, very quickly, in a sense, very simply, right? He had his needs met very simply by having a simple bowl of food each day. He slept on the floor, and he was done with his needs. So his interaction in a taking way was very, very minimal. And then he uses energy to help others, right? He spent his time helping others, I mean, well into the night, right? And he knew that all actions had reactions, in a sense, payments, right? And there was an exchange going on. And that those things where he was taking, there was a cost, right? And those costs, do add up. But he filled his ledger full of positive things, right? By doing that, he created an environment around him that was very loving because he showed love. His actions, he used his freedom to do good things, and because of that, the universe was paying him through circumstance, right? Instead of costing him because of bad decisions, good decisions paid him, in a sense. It created an environment around him where he could live without fear because he was surrounded by those who loved him, right? He was in an environment where he was not scared of it falling apart, right? Because he cared for it with each breath, in a sense. Took from it very sparingly. So freedom is not the ability to move in any direction, freedom free of cost, right? That kind of a universe doesn't exist except for in the mind, right? Freedom comes from a life of giving to others that creates such a beautiful environment around us. We are safe. We are safe, right? So this is the kind of freedom that the Buddha spoke about. And I just want to talk about it for a few minutes because it is an interesting way of thinking about it, isn't it? That freedom comes from doing the right thing, right? So we are no longer afraid of the payments of our decisions, right? We are glad to have those payments come to us, right? They are valuable, these payments, because these payments will be love and trust and beauty and contentment, right? Instead of the payments that come from doing the wrong things. Fear, anxiety, worry, like that's where it comes from. It comes from worrying about the payments of our decisions, right? So let's do loving ones. Let's be good, right? Let's do the right things, right? We will create a path around us that we will become, very, very safe. Anyways, that's all I have to say today. I enjoyed the talk, and I look forward to talking again. Namaste.